Howdy folks, we're going to be making the X-Rhea Bowie knife. As you probably know, this is a one-piece constructed knife that's forged completely, and I want to show you how I do it. There's been a lot of people asking me about that, and so I finally got to make a video of it, and you get to watch it. So I want you to enjoy it, and if you can, please like and subscribe to the channel. I appreciate that, and I appreciate Ben, my son, helping me with this editing. So let's get into the video. Enjoy it. Forged it out of a big round. This is from Don Hanson. So it's DH3 W2 steel. Those who know it will recognize the name, and I forged it down into some 3/8 by 2 inch. So I'm going to kind of show you the proportions to start with. This knife I anticipate to be about a 10-inch blade, maybe something like that. See how it goes. You're getting the part at the end of the bar up to heat. I'm going to come to the anvil. I'm going to use a big hammer. I'm going to set down about 4 inches of it. So keep that in mind. I'm setting down about 4 to 4 1/4, something like that. That anvil's 4 1/4 inch wide. So I'm just going to use that, 4 1/4. Using a big hammer. There we go. I do want this hot, so you saw that top corner, just a little tiny bit of sparkle coming off of it. I should have enough to trim off. That's the handle. Okay, I'm going to set that down even farther. Okay, there's two things going on here. I've got that isolated. From the bar, and it's kind of jacked up out of alignment. That's good. I can access this area, almost this whole flat. Now I can access, with one exception, and that's the top lug is going to be along the spine of this piece. So it's okay for me to strike it off the anvil, and if it upsets that top of that spine a little bit, that's okay. You see how it's out in front of this step? That will be peeled up later. But I'm going to refine that area and flatten and thin this. This is too thick for the blade. It's too thick for the blade. Yet it's thick enough that I can actually thicken and widen it and change the geometry on this tail piece. I've just got that up and started to be squared up and out of the way so I can work right here. This is going to be where the most work and the most critical work is going to be, right here in that area. I'm down here close up where you can see. I want to show you what we got here. I'm going to try to explain what my goal is. Okay, this is as far as I've gotten so far, and most of that was on camera. What I went ahead and done was marked a notch right here and just ground that out. It's just real easy to dip your side grinder in there and take that out. And what that allows me to do is eventually I can access this right here with a chisel to undercut it. I'm gonna go back in there about 3/4 of an inch or so, something like that, and lift that up. This is up out of the way, and then that'll be up out of the way. But before I actually lift that, I'm gonna, I've got this isolated. Let me back up just a little bit. This area that's shaded is gonna be the blade thickness, and that can be 1/4 inch or whatever you want. But essentially, I'm saying that this will thin this area here from here, and whatever the length. It can be a sword, it can be a 6-inch blade, whatever. But from back here, this way, and on this level, it's more or less parallel. It's going to be your new bar size. So all in front of this, I'll forge all that down to this width, so it's more proportionate to say a Bowie knife blade, and then you just forge it whichever direction you want to make your blade shape. This right here will get wider and wider, and this will kind of go with it. It may not be the same because it's going to have some kind of sculpting to it, but it needs to widen. So I've got this down to here, to this line. That's all going to be squished down into a wider flat, preparing it to cut and lift and blend back into the handle. It'll try to blend back into the handle. I'll have to bring this smaller as I go. But right now, I want to concentrate on preparing this area so that my vise can grip it. Now I'll insert a picture of it setting in the vise. The vise jaw is here, and the top of the jaw runs from a line that's about from this bottom of this cut all the way over to there. And that gives me the chance to peen this down, cross peen it. I'm cross peening it this way, like this, to widen it and set it down and squish it down. So I'm grabbing it with the vise, and I'll show you more about that. But again, I want the vise to be able to hold it. So if this is all lumpy and out of shape and ups and downs, it's going to be rocking, and even though it's hot, the vise won't be able to put that kind of pressure on it. It will be able to put pressure on it, but it won't be able to flatten your piece. So go ahead, I'm going to go ahead and flatten this, and at the same time, when I'm gripping it with a vise, I'm going to be upsetting and widening this. So that's what I'm doing next. But I'm trying to help you to understand that this will thin, that will widen, and it'll be a sudden change. And so sudden that there'll be a flat parallel plane coming up, and then all of a sudden it's going to hit the bottom of that, the top of the handle, the bottom of that, and step out and up and over. So it'll have a T shape. If you were to cut that in half, it'll look like a T post or a T shape. This being the top of the T, and this being the part that is down. Okay, now I feel like it's important that I make you understand where I'm headed here, and that there's going to be some fiddling with it. So I may not be able to widen that in one heat, and I won't be able to thin that in one heat. And by the way, eventually, wherever the end of this cut is, let's just say it comes back to about right there, and that lifts up, kind of on a 45-degree angle from that. If that lifts up on a 45, following the line down, that's going to be the center of my standoff, and everything else is either going to be forged in or cut in. So that lifts up, and that's about a 45 degrees. So the strength of this knife is going to be shaped like an X. You can start to see a line there where the top of the vice jaws start creating the bottom of that guard lug and the top of the T. Okay, now we're starting to see a definite widening in comparison to the original bar. So now I'm gonna attempt to straighten this and drop this down and work just slightly in front of this and align all this up and the top down below this level right here. So that'll get me back on a baseline, something that I can recognize as normal. And it's always good to do that periodically so that you keep things straight in your head. And also on the anvil, I will come back with a hammer, support it on the anvil, and just kind of square up these edges just a little bit so that it looks like a continuous line when it gets out here on the handle's got to come way on out and in shape and everything, but eventually that right there will need to kind of match out here. So we'll go back to the fire. I went ahead and cut the piece off the bar and lined it, the blade as it were, out in front of that guard. So I'm just kind of using the vise and the hammer to isolate and spread that top lug just a little bit more. I'm having to use a high heat, really high heat. Really starting to see the difference right here now. You can also see the where, even though that's only limited as far as its power to squeeze, you can see the jaw outlined right there. So it does have some effect on it, on the thickness here. So I've barely thinned it, and I don't like to get it all the way as thin as I intend to all at once. It just seems to get thinner and thinner. If there has to be any grinding or anything like that, it'll just get too thin. So it's best to just work that a little at a time. So I can hang on to it now up here or here and work this area in. Probably the next thing I want to do is push this up and start it into a horizontal cross section. Right now this is square, and as it comes forward it still retains some of this vertical cross section. So I'm going to transition that. I'm going to go to the power hammer. The die will be here and here, and squish that up, which will broaden it some. So I've got to do next is almost hard. It's difficult for me to explain, so it's I just about have to show you. So what I've got is when I put it in the power hammer, it flattened that, but it sort of centered out, and it's a lot lower than it needs to be. So I'm going to raise this up and then blend this area in, but I want it to be pretty hot. So let me get that up to my temperature. I've got a bunch of chickens and guineas that wanted to show up about the time that I started this part of it, and they're just making lots of noise. You'll have to just tolerate that. So I'm going to try to accomplish 2 or 3 different things. I just want you to watch close. I got you up close to the anvil so you can see better. Let's try it. Okay, I'm supporting it, and I'm going to hit it with a round faced hammer. That raised it up. Now I'm going to put that on there on the horn. And just sort of work things back and forth. Something else, that appears to be a little narrow, but it's also high, so I've got some material there that I can work into a wider place there. So I'm going to take a particular kind of hammer. I'm going to show it to you, and I'm going to set it on the flat face, and I'm going to work that right there and sort of widen it. So let's see what happens. The part that I think is a little bit small, I'm going to try to upset it with this hammer here. And then I'll go back to the vise. I want to kind of work on it just a little bit. Supporting it on the anvil. Yeah, it's coming out. I can feel it. So a small hammer won't strike as deep. It won't strike as deep, which I don't want it to strike deep. And you can see that even so, this upset just a little bit area here, which I can correct real quick. But you can see that even that, now it's about the same width, whereas there was a narrow spot right here. Okay, I'm going to put this in the vise. I'm going to do 2 things. I'm going to use the vise to help straighten and squeeze the blade section. That's the ricasso blade section. The other thing is I'm going to go ahead and push the tail down kind of in alignment. For the vise to get a good grip, it has to be hot. Okay, we got it. Wherever it's turned black already, there's no use in me striking on that. I don't want to strike on it. It'd be too hard on my vise and my hammer and so forth. You can see now that it does have a T cross section. It's basically time now to undercut and lift that guard up.